So let's have a look at what's in your kit. To start with the cyanotypes, we have a very essential elements, and that's the chemistry of the cyanotype. So in your kit you have already 2 different bottles with solutions, so it's pre-measured powdered inside the bottles. There's A and B, it's 2 different chemicals, and then what you need to do is to add water to it and then shake the bottle. So on the labels themselves you'll see there's like a little arrow there, and it lets you know until where you have to put the water. So you have to fill up with water all the way until that little stripe, and it's 100 milliliters for each of the powders. So you can open the bottles and then add 100 milliliters. I'll try to do it carefully. Right, this one, oops, it's just water, so it's fine. As long as you just fill it up to the stripe, it's okay. You should leave a little bit on the table. Right, and now what you need to do is close them really good, both sides, and then shake them really good. So in order to dissolve the powder, you're going to need to shake it for a long time. The best way would be to wait until the next day, so let it be for 24 hours, and then the powder will be really well dissolved and you can go on with your work. Of course we don't have that kind of patience here, so what we're going to do is shake them really well for 15 minutes, and then you can go ahead and use them right away. So it's really like vigorous shaking for a long time, and both the solutions really well. If you have a doubt, if you still hear, like if you hear a little sound of the powder still shaking in the bottle, that's a sign that you have to shake it much better. If you're really paranoid about the little powder, you can also filtrate the content with a coffee filter to make sure there's no little chunks anymore. Okay, so now that you've shaken both of your bottles really well, you'll see that the powder is really well dissolved. Inside the bottles, it can last for about a year, maybe longer. These blue bottles are really good for UV protection, so you can keep the solution separate for really long. In the B bottle, it's possible that you're going to start to get mold growth. So at some point you may see that there's a little mold growing on the surface. It's not affecting the chemistry, so you can just filter it out again with a coffee filter, and then you're good to go. You can still use a mix, so that's no problem. The liquids, the 2 different solutions, they start being light sensitive as soon as you mix them together. So the next step is to mix equal amounts of each solutions in a little cup, and then you can start adding it to your substrate, to your paper or your textile or whatever surface you want to paint on. In that case, because it is light sensitive, you want to make sure you don't work with bright light. So you want to make sure the light is subdued. Here, of course, we're filming, we need sufficient light, but ideally you're doing it in a place where you close the curtains up, and then you can turn on your artificial lights. So normal lamps, tungsten lamps, they're fine. If for some reason you have UV lamps in your house, that would be a problem, but that's very unlikely. So the next step is to measure equal amounts of both of those liquids. Alright, so I've closed the curtain so we don't have direct light coming onto your surface. What you're going to need is maybe some paper or newspaper to cover up your work surface. And then inside the kits you have different types of paper to work with. And you'll have a foam brush. So this one is to paint your surface with. You have little bamboo sticks so that you can blend your 2 solutions together. And then we have a little measuring cup. Put this aside so you can see better. So a little measuring cup, and then measuring cup. So this one has 30 milliliter all the way to the top. That's already plenty to do your stack of paper or other test papers. So in this case we have little disposable gloves. You can put them on. So the idea is to measure equal amounts of both solutions, and there's also an eyedropper in there if you want to work with really small solutions. Only mix what you're going to use right away. So in this case I'll do up to the stripe. And it doesn't matter in which order you're using the solutions. So this is 30 milliliter. And I would advise you to start closing it right away so you don't mix the different droppers. So if you use this one on the other bottle, of course it will contaminate the liquid, and that's not great, so because it becomes light sensitive and you spoil the rest of the bottle. And then 30 milliliters of this one too. You see it's a different color, it's different chemicals in it. Alright. So now that we're mixing them, the magic can start to happen and they become light sensitive. So you want to mix your two liquids really well together. And now you can start coating. Alright, so you have different types of paper in your kit, different textures, different thicknesses, different styles. Try it. Try different things. Some of them have a little text at the bottom, some of them not. The idea is to have an even coat of liquid onto your material, and then as soon as you have coated the paper, of course it becomes sensitive, so you have to put it away inside a dark place for it to dry. So in this case we're using the foam brush. What's important, you can use any tool you like, but make sure your tool doesn't have any metal in it. So most paint brushes, the crimp is made of metal, there's metal elements, it will affect your solution. It's the same with other tools, don't use anything that has metal in it. So I would just dip my brush in it really well. And then how you coat your paper also affects the end result. So you can decide to coat the entire surface of the paper or to leave a little edge on the side, to leave a sort of margin on the edge. So what you want to aim for is an even layer on the paper that absorbs really well into the surface of the paper. You don't want like extra liquid pulling on the surface, because if you have places where your color is thicker, you'll also see that on the end result. So here I'm going for more of an even surface. You could also decide to go for super visible brush strokes. So if you want to go a bit more artistic, you could say, well, I end my brush stroke with a bit of movement, so that you have something really fluid, really organic on the edge. Once you're done with this, the idea is to let it dry. So maybe you can even use the box that we have, so remove the rest of the elements in your kit, so the frame and the brushes, and put them inside to dry. Or you can put them inside a dark room or something, just to let it air dry. Maybe it takes half an hour. But this I'll close up and I'll let it dry for half an hour, and then put it away so we can expose some more. We also have other types of paper in the kit. So this is more of a sort of kitchen towel material, but it's really fun. And this is also sort of non-woven material. If you have something more textile here, if you want to try cotton or silk, other textiles, you can even dip your material directly into your cup. So if you just dip the whole thing and then wring it out to remove the excess liquid, you'll get a nice even coverage, and then you can just open it back out, sort of straighten it a little bit, and also put it to dry in a dark place. And it's fine if you leave it on your newspaper also to dry. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat again, but this will dry very nicely and your color will be nice and even. So this one as well, it looks like a paper towel, but it's super strong material. You could even put it in the washing machine, it'll be fine. So we like it because it rinses really well, it's really tear resistant, and it's a really fun way to try something different. It's really flexible. So also just straighten it out and let it dry. So I would say experiments with different materials, different types of paper. You don't have to coat them all at once, maybe try a little bit and then see what you like. Of course, once your solution is made, you have to use it up right away. So you don't have to make as much as this for the start, unless you want to coat all your paper or fabric at once. If you're more into experimenting, mix a little amount and then continue adjusting your technique, adjusting the things that you try later on. You could also decide that you want to paint the liquid already in a shape. I'll put these to dry inside of here for a second. So for instance, I could take my card and then coat it in a shape that's already artistic. So here, I could say, well, I don't want to coat all the way to the edges. I want to make a circle in the middle. So that's also possible. You just hold your paper really well onto the edge and then freehand a circle in the middle. So that way, your emulsion is only visible in that circle shape, and you can have a more graphic result with the next step, with the plants that you add. And it doesn't have to be perfect. There's nothing perfect about this process, so be content with something more flexible. That's also possible. You could also say, well, what I want is paint all the way to the edges. Again, that's no problem at all. So you would just coat your paper all the way to the edge. And your paper is more likely going to curve a little bit as it dries. That's not really an issue, because in the next step we'll clamp it really well into the frame and then it will dry again. At the same time, if you get a little bit of stains on the back, that's also no big deal. We'll rinse it out. As long as it doesn't get exposed, it doesn't get sunlight, it will rinse out, no problem. So I let all these guys dry out, and then we go to the next step. So it's been half an hour and our paper is dry, and now's the moment to start working with your composition. So in your kit you have a glass contact frame. It comes with a print that we made for you, already signed as an example. So you can remove the little clips at the back. Try not to hurt yourself, they're a bit tight. So you just slide them over. And then you have a piece of wood, this is the print that we made for you, and a piece of glass. What you want to do is make a sandwich. So we still have the indirect light, so artificial light on, and for instance, this one is already dry, so you would place your dried paper in your contact frame, and then you're going to need some kind of vegetation. So you can work with something fresh that you just cut, but you can also work with material that you've dried and pressed, so pieces that are you know, like little weeds, little branches, all kind of different foliage, little flowers. And the more thin, the more translucent your flowers are. So for instance, this blue flower is quite translucent. It will eventually let the light of the sun through, so you're going to start having transparency developing. So the idea is you take your vegetation and then place it on your frame. So that's the moment where you can get playful. You can also, of course, layer different flowers together, different leaves. You can, you know, place them really specifically. You can bend them in shape. If you want to have something like really unnatural for the plant, you could even use a little piece of tape and then actually glue your composition to the glass with a little piece of transparent tape so that it doesn't move. So if you want something that's really hard to achieve in any other way, you could add a little piece of tape to make sure that it stays exactly where you want in your composition. And then you close your frame. So the easiest way is just to use clothespins. And of course you want to make sure that the shadow of the clothespin is not going to show on your design. So you can also use these clips again. Here you just pop them onto the edge so it clips like this. You have a little edge here and then you push them and you hear a little click. So that they make less shadows on the front. And they give a pretty good bond. So these are also a good choice. The main goal is to make sure that this stays stable because we're going to take it outside to the sun. So you can prepare your composition like this, and then is the fun part is the exposure. Alright, so another effect that you could try is to have some kind of frame around your object. So you could say, well, I still make a sandwich with my frame. So this would be your insulated paper. And then instead of having the whole surface visible, you want like something really precise on the edge. So you could take black paper and then just cut out a frame and layer it with your paper. So you can have this one, different shapes, or you can make just a simple frame on the edge, so something really geometric. That you say, well, I'll take just the edge of my paper. And leave maybe 1 centimeter on the edge so that you have a really sharp border all around your print. And that saves you from having to paint the solution on so very carefully. It's also a good way to have a nice border around it. So you would put on first the border, and you could also say, well, I make different shapes and then also add negative space in the middle. So if I did something like this, and then I add my little herb on it, or my little vegetation, to have something that's and a little organic and a little bit geometric, so a bit more modern look. So again, here I would use my clips, and then on the side here it's going to be covered from the light anyway, so it doesn't matter where you put your clip. And then this can go in the sun as well. Alright, so now's the time to rinse our print. So we've brought it back inside, and both of the prints are ready to go. What you're going to do is start filling a tray with water. So we can just use normal cold water. Remove your little clips. So here I'll remove the clips one. And so you have your sandwich, and you can see underneath your plant the color is completely different. So the color of the paper here is still yellow, and then the color where it was exposed is now sort of bronze gray color. And you have different intensity, so now underneath the petal it was much more light than underneath the stem. So now we're going to start rinsing it. And I'll try to make sure that you see something. So what you want is that the yellow color here is going to start to rinse off. So we'll start to see the white appearing. So we'll let the water go on, and the best thing is actually to do it upside down. So to clean up your print so that the water doesn't go directly on top of it. So we let this one go. You can also put the water a little bit softer, so it doesn't have to be so strong. And then this one is even easier because we have the clothespins. So you can just remove your glass again. And here we have the little straw that's really delicate. And this one we did it with the graphic paper block, like a stencil. And then we'll see what results you get. So again, you want to rinse your print until all traces of that yellow are gone. Otherwise, when it darkens, when it dries, you'll see that the yellow stays in the picture. So our prints have been rinsing for a couple of minutes now, and then if I'm finished with it, so I can just rinse it the last bit. And then so what we see is here it's completely white where the stem of the leaf was really opaque, and then where the flower was, it's much thinner, so you really see much more light going through. And then where the petals overlap, again you have a bit of more white, but it's really very fine detail, so you can get super sharp accuracy in the print. Alright, now if we see the print is really developed, there's no more traces of green, and then it's blue, but it's not that dark of a blue. It will start getting darker blue with time, so it oxidates as it dries in contact with oxygen. If you're in a rush, or if you're not very patient like me, what you can do is speed up that oxidation process. What you're going to need is a little tray with water, and then we also add a tiny bit of hydrogen peroxide, so just a little spoonful is enough. So you really like a tiny bit, mix it up a bit. I'll mix it up with a clothespin. And then you'll see in front of the camera that the print really darkens when I do it in the hydrogen peroxide. Do you see that change in blue? So that's really how fast the print then completely oxidizes with the hydrogen peroxide. So you can do it both sides, and then when you see that the print is really, really dark, you're good to go. So this is the finished result, and then you can give it a last final rinse, and then you're good to go for hanging it to dry. So I'll do the magic also on the second one that we've rinsed. Watch this. So as you put it in the mix, it darkens. You can really see how fast the darkening process happens. And that's because, of course, of the extra oxygen in the hydrogen peroxide. And here on this print, you can see this was our triangle, but there's a tiny bit of blue happening here, and also on the edge that we wanted to hide, of course, of the extra oxygen in the hydrogen. Now, something else that's fun for you to try is you could make your regular sandwich. So if you take a glass, and then I have our paper, and then a plant, and then you can do your composition until you have something that you like. Add, of course, your little clips again to keep everything tight and secured, and then alright, and now if you have a paint marker, so this is a Posca type of pen, you want a paint marker, so something that will really make something opaque, and then you could write something directly onto the glass, for instance. So the whole point is that it's really opaque. So this will let it dry, and then we're going to expose it. So of course you want to cover it from the light, let it dry upside down so that you don't get light on it. So our print has been rinsing for a bit, and now if you check it, it's got quite a lot of details, and then you can see a tiny bit of shadow on the side, and that's because of the thickness of the glass. And now we're going to do it again in our hydrogen peroxide to darken it completely, because we're impatient little people. Both sides. And give it the last bit of rinse. And I really hope you can see on camera, but how beautiful the details, like the tiny little roots and the sharpness of all the little details, and a bit of shadow on the text because of the thickness of the glass on your pen. For this we're going to let it dry. And I had prepared some other prints, and we're going to take off these ones as well. And again, so this is more of a kitchen paper, like the thinner ones. And for these ones, you can just actually rinse them and then use the water. So if you have cotton or something like that, you would do it the same way. So it's much faster to rinse. And you can also like squeeze it a little bit to rinse that. But see, already it's very clean. And this one as well, you can rinse it and expose it with the... And so this one also has a little bit of text that we wrote on the glass. And you can also do this one in the hydrogen peroxide. And you see how fast you get the result. So this one I'll rinse this last time. And it's really not that fragile actually, so it's quite a strong material. And again, you can see exactly how sharp all the details are and a little bit blurry of the pen that's on there. And this one, at the same time, to resist a little heat. And that's the other type of paper, it's a bit more of a linen structure. And this one, again, I can just rinse it in the water really fast. And it's already clean. And again, I'll remove a bit of the water, dip it into my hydrogen peroxide. See how fast it goes, really quick. And so, again, give it the last bit of rinse under clean water. And this one again, you can also squeeze it dry. And you can stretch it to be back again to sort of square size. But so hopefully you can really see like all the tiny bit of details around the edges and how sharp the print is.